Today we're looking at some of the scariest Dreadnoughts in 40k, the revamped Custodes Dreadnoughts, all sporting their own version of Duty Eternal. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy focused 40k channel, where today we're going to be taking a look over the three Custodes Dreadnoughts in the Imperial Armour Compendium, the Contemptor Achillus, the Contemptor Galatus, and the fearsome Telemon Heavy Dreadnought. We'll take a look over their datasheets, talk a little bit about their damage output and durability, and a few nice buffs that they can get when they're part of a Custodes army. As Dreadnoughts go, a couple of these guys are really top tier competitive. First up we have the Contemptor Achillus Dreadnought, the guy who's armed with a mighty dread spear, basically a massively upgraded version of what a standard custodian might wield. It's an elite's choice for Adeptus Custodes, it's a core unit, and it's 160 points to field, or a little bit more if you do want to swap out those Lastrum Stormbolters. Its new profile in the Imperial Armour Compendium gives it a 9-inch move, weapon skill and ballistic skill 2, strength and toughness of 7, 9 wounds, 5 attacks and a 2+ armor save. Like the rest of the Contemptors in 9th edition, it's dropped 1 wound, but that does mean that it doesn't degrade at all, which is kind of a positive. Now this one, just like the Codex regular Venerable Contemptor Dreadnought, has now just got a crazy amount of durability buffs. As well as that already decent 2+ armor save, it gets a 5+ invul as well, a 6+ feel no pain due to unyielding ancient, and stack that all on top of Duty Eternal to make it more resistant to multi-damage weapons. Much like the standard Contemptor in the Custodes decks, it really compares very well to other melee dreadnoughts in terms of durability. If your opponent wants to take this guy down, he's going to pay for it in a decent amount of firepower. Point for point, it's just really tough. In terms of war gear, that dread spear in melee is basically a massive anti-tank weapon. It's strength 14, AP -3, and a mighty damage D3+3. As he's hitting on 2s, he's going to be absolutely monstrous against tanks. On average, you'll typically get 3 wounds through against a standard toughness 7 vehicle, so with average rolls that's around about 15 wounds. Even just one hit going through an invul save could be enough to kill an enemy character. It's really pretty potent against anything that's heavy, there is nothing too special against hordes where that dread spear is just going to be massive overkill. It can attack at range as well. At 24 inches, it's a heavy 2-shot with strength 8, AP -2, and a flat damage 3. Not exactly the most potent firepower ever, but could give you a good chance of bumping off a Gravis armoured Space Marine or something. And finally, it has 2 Lastrum Stormbolters, each one rapid fire 2, at strength 5, AP -1, and damage 1. Not bad for a little bit of anti-horde, with 8 shots hitting on 2s at 12-inch range. This guy's definitely more of a melee beatstick, but his range damage output isn't nothing either, and hopefully when he's advancing towards the foe, he should be in a good position to unleash it on choice targets. You do have the option for trading out those Lastrum Stormbolters for either an Adrathic Destructor or an Infernus Incinerator. Both of those will cost you 10 points each. The Destructor's an 18-inch Assault 2 weapon with strength 5, AP -3, and damage 3, and the Infernus Incinerator is a 12-inch range, auto-hitting flamer weapon with D6 shots, strength 6, AP -1, and damage 1. Honestly, I don't think that the Incinerator's anywhere near worth trading out those Stormbolters for 10 points. You may as well just keep him cheap. If he does get close then he's hitting on 2s anyway, you might well just do just as much damage with the Stormbolters. The Destructors may be a little bit better. It's certainly going to do a fair bit more against heavies than the Stormbolters, but I'm still not sure it's worth it for 10 points more. Overall, for me this guy ticks quite a lot of boxes. Very scary melee damage output, comparatively very durable, and at least some range damage output to speak of. He's even quite fast with a 9-inch move. Certainly in my mind a very strong model for the Adeptus Custodes. Next up we come to his brother, the Contemptor Galatus Dreadnought. This guy's also a core elite's choice for 170 points and has the same stats as the last one. He is arguably even tougher, putting him amongst the very toughest dreadnoughts point for point in Warhammer 40k. The shield gives him a 4+ invul and also makes him -1 to hit in melee. The invul's excellent for foxing anti-tank firepower such as las cannons, and -1 to hit can be surprisingly punishing as well if your opponent's main way to deal damage to him is in the fight phase. So he is tougher, but I would argue that he's not quite as impressive in the fight phase unfortunately. That Galatus Warblade has a strength of 7, AP -3 and flat damage 3. You do get an extra D3 attacks with it, so he'll be averaging 7 attacks. So compared with the Achilles, he will be doing a little bit more damage to hordes. He's just not going to do that crazy amount of damage to heavy hitters though, like the Dread Spear can. The Warblade can make a ranged attack as well, essentially firing as 2 of those Infernus Incinerators, with a range of 12 inches for 2d6 auto hits at strength 6, AP -1 and damage 1. Overall I'd say he's not bad, but is probably going to lose out compared with the Achilles. I'm just not sure that the extra durability is really worth it compared with losing that massive damage output against heavies. The Stormbolters alone are pretty much as good as his Incinerator attack, and the Achillus also gets those extra couple of decent anti-tank shots with the Dreadspear. I would say that this guy isn't too far behind, certainly more tailored to fighting infantry, and a bit tougher, but lacks some of the raw damage output of the Achillus, which I think puts it ahead. Finally, we come to one of the biggest, baddest Dreadnoughts in 40k, none other than the Telemon Heavy Dreadnought. This one isn't an elite's choice, it's a heavy support choice, and it also isn't core, which doesn't really mean anything at the moment, but it does mean that when Custodes get their codex, it likely won't be buffed by auras. This guy is 260 points base, and if you take any of the Arachnus Storm Cannons on it, they'll cost you 15 points each. For 260 points, its stat line is very impressive. It's near enough identical to the old Leviathan stat line, even though they were heavily nerfed in the Forge World update. It's got an 8-inch move, weapon skill and ballistic skill 2+, strength and toughness 8, 14 wounds, 4 attacks, a 2+ save, and a mighty 4+ invul. As if that weren't enough, it also has a 6+ feel no pain for being a venerable dreadnought, and also has permanent duty eternal, which the old Leviathans never had. As well as being an absolutely massive unit, I believe that even point for point, this is the best durability for any dreadnought in the game at the moment. Small arms will do absolutely nothing to him, anything with AP -1 is going to be saved on a 3+, and even really big heavy weapons with loads of AP are just as likely to bounce off that invul as they are to do anything. He's just going to be an absolute nightmare to take any wounds off. For the points, I would say that while his durability is absolutely amazing, his damage output isn't spectacular, though he does have some solid general purpose weapons that will chip away at the enemy turn on turn. All of them get a Spiculous Bolt Launcher, that's the contraption on the top of the Dreadnought. It's 24-inch range, 5 shots at heavy 5, AP -1 and damage 1. If the Telemon didn't move, then it gets to double its damage output with this, having 10 shots instead of 5. Not necessarily the main event, but if it stays still then you'll get a decent amount of anti-infantry firepower. For its arm weapons, you can take 2 of these in any combination between the Iliastus Accelerator Culverin, the Arachnus Storm Cannon, and the Telemon Caestus. That's basically its massive Dreadnought Close Combat Fist of Doom. The Accelerator Culverins are kind of all-round ranged weapons, 48-inch range, heavy 4, strength 7, AP -2, and damage 2. I will say that it's not spectacular damage output, even hitting on 2s, but it should be at least fairly effective on anything that's toughness 7 or below, particularly fairly decent at cutting through 2-wound infantry. The next option are those Arachnus Storm Cannons, which are 15 points more. They can be fired in 2 different modes, Beam Mode, which is 36 inches, Heavy 2, Strength 8, AP -4, and Flat Damage 3. That one can reroll wound rolls against vehicles, making it a pretty decent tank hunting weapon. If you fire it in Burst Mode, then it's 24 inches, Heavy 6, Strength 7, AP -2, and Damage 1. It means that compared with the Iliastus Accelerator Cannon, the Arachnus Storm Cannon will do a lot better against vehicles and heavily armoured targets, and also quite a bit better against 1-wound infantry as well. The Iliastus has a bit of a niche in the middle, where it can do a bit better against things like Primaris infantry with 2 wounds. It does also have the range advantage. I honestly think that these two are pretty well balanced at the points differential they're at, and I don't think that either of them are really the wrong choice for arming the Telemon with. I think the extra charge on the Storm Cannon is pretty appropriate to how much of an upgrade you get. Finally, you can take 1 or more of the Telemon Caestus Fists. For each one of these that you have, you get an extra melee attack, and they're made at strength 16, AP -4, and a flat damage 4. Pretty mighty, you really don't want to be getting in the way of that, though interesting that the Telemon still has a lower damage output in melee compared with the Contemptor Achillus. For each one of the fists you take, you also get a plasma projector built in, a 12-inch range weapon, with 2d3 auto hits at strength 6, AP -2 and damage 1, so a little bit of help clearing hordes there. For me with the Telemon loadouts, I would either happily take 2 of the Iliastus, 2 of the Storm Cannons, or have 1 fist and 1 of the guns. I think you'll get more from a second gun than taking a second fist. Overall, I think the Telemon is mainly scary because it's just a threat that you're not going to be able to do anything about, unless you're happy to sacrifice really quite a lot of firepower compared with how much damage output it does. There's very little in the game that will efficiently kill this thing, so you've got the choice between expending excessive firepower to bring it down, or just allowing it to chip away at your army all game long. Of course, Custodes have a fair few options for making the Dreadnoughts even stronger than they are now. As they move up the field, they could profit from a -1 to hit from the Vexil and Magnifica. All of them are frankly obnoxiously tough by vehicle standards, and that's really just going to take it to the next level at range and allow them to close the distance if they want to. They can get reroll 1s to hit from a Shield Captain or Trajan Valoris, or just use Wisdom of the Ancients for the same effect, and in that way can actually be a buffing unit for the rest of the Custodes shooting units around them. Other than Wisdom of the Ancients, you can pay 1 command point for Eternal Penitent, That gives your Dreadnought +1 attack and allows them to re-roll charges. Could be a pretty solid upgrade if you are sure that you're going to be getting into melee. If you want to, you can also put them in Deep Strike Reserve too, by using from Golden Light, and potentially combine that with the Dread Host option, Golden Light of the Merades, which could allow them to get a long charge out of Deep Strike. Could be good for something like the Achillus or the Galatus perhaps. After the three, I feel like the Achillus and the Telemon are probably the strongest, but I think that they work best as support pieces for the Custodes army, rather than going too mad and trying to spam loads of them. While they are very solid, Custodes are quite elite in themselves, and it's like you're going to want a few more numbers rather than over-investing in very fighty Dreadnoughts. Over the last month or so since the Armour Compendium has come out, a few of them have been featuring in top tournament lists, particularly the Telemon and Achillus ones, and I'm sure with the stat line that they have, they'll continue to do this for some time to come. So I hope you've enjoyed a little rundown of the scariness that are the Custodes Forge World Dreadnoughts. If you have any other insights into them or how they're best used, feel free to let us know down in the comments below, or any experience in 9th edition you have of using them. If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, where we'll certainly be covering more strong units and combos in the game, with new videos every day. Finally, if you have enjoyed the video and you'd like to help support the channel, I would just like to mention that I do have a Patreon page, which you can find down in the video description. All of the content does take a fair amount of time to make, and if you are enjoying regularly, then any support is massively appreciated. Channel patrons get a few advantages, such as being able to see certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and also automatic entry into our prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits every single month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support the channel, then check out the link down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.